Video editing has changed. Content production was first focused on long projects like movies lasting over 90 minutes with months or even years of production time. But over time, the dominant media length became shorter and shorter. First, TV shows, which was a decrease to around 30 minutes with weeks or months of production time per episode. Then YouTube became a thing with content ranging between 5 to 15 minutes and publishing cycles of around 1 video per week depending on the channel. And nowadays with TikTok, Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, the content duration has not only decreased to around 15 seconds to 2 minutes, but the quantity and the frequency of publishing has increased a lot. A lot of creators are publishing multiple pieces of content per day, every day, which changed the way video editors need to work massively. Nowadays, it's all about quantity and pace while still keeping a good level of quality. In order to pull that off over a longer period of time without burning out, you will need to optimize your workflow and make sure it is as efficient as possible. I have been rethinking and optimizing all of the steps in my editing workflow over the last couple of months, and I will share all of my secrets in this video. But before we jump in, I want to ask you guys to challenge and question all of the things I'm showing you. If some of you guys come up with a way to improve any of these steps, please do share your ideas in the comments. I would really appreciate any tip that would make my workflow and your workflow more efficient. The first one is picking the right video editing software. Now, I'm not going to recommend a specific editing tool for you because all of them have their strengths and their weaknesses. There are amazing established solutions like Adobe Premiere Pro, FinalCut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. Personally, I am editing on Adobe Premiere Pro right now, but if you're not, don't leave the video just yet because most of the tips that are following are rather general and can be applied to any software. When it comes to choosing the right editing software for you, the most important aspect when it comes to editing fast is the ability to reuse assets, animations, and text stylings. This is why, for example, CapCut, which is a free mobile app or desktop app, isn't ready for fast editing yet because you need to reapply every styling and everything you do on each video. But we will get into the animations, assets, and so on later in the video. The second tip is to use the right laptop or PC. When I first started editing, I used this 2016 MacBook Air, which was not spec'd for video editing and it could barely run Premiere Pro, but it was great to make the first step. I then upgraded to the 2020 $1,500 14-inch MacBook Pro. This was a huge jump in performance and really kicked off my journey of editing efficient and fast. But the specs weren't the best and it struggled with 4K footage and it also got very loud. I recently decided to take it to the next level and upgrade it to the $4,000 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip. But I decided not to buy the laptop but to rent it instead, and I'm paying $99 a month for that. This was a great deal for me because I knew that the performance increase would allow me to make more money than those $99 it cost me a month. This investment changed the game for me. It's so much faster, so much easier to work with. Even with 4K footage, there is absolutely no delay and there is no noise. I know that not everybody can afford expensive gear like this, and that's okay. But if you do have the means and you notice that you have performance issues, make sure you look for a better device. That's going to have a huge impact on your performance. It is a pay-to-win tip, but you will see a return on investment really quickly. When it comes to the peripherals, I decided to go for the Logitech MX series. I got the MX Master 3S mouse and the mechanical MX Key mini keyboard. I got them in a bundle deal for around 220 euros, which is around $250. The prices for these vary a lot depending on the country you're in. The mouse is a game changer when it comes to video editing. It offers custom programming specifically for Premiere Pro. I programmed the side wheel to zoom in and out of the sequence if I need to put precise cuts. For the button shortcuts, I decided to go for the ones that require multiple buttons to be pressed at once but are frequently used. So instead of clicking Command or Alt and S to save, I just click this button. So now instead of clicking 2 buttons, I just make this subtle movement and save the project. The second button is undo. So when I make a mistake, I can just easily reverse it without having to press again 2 buttons. There is also a secret button placed down here, which I programmed to be the delete button. So I don't have to let go of the mouse to delete the section. When it comes to the keyboard, you can save a lot of time by setting up your shortcuts properly. Every video editing software has default shortcuts. The shortcuts on Premiere Pro look like this, but I changed some of them. The most important change is with the Q, W, and E keys. I didn't change the Q key and left it as the ripple trim previous. I moved the ripple trim next from the W key to the E key, and I turned the W key into a cut, which by default would be Command K or Alt K, which once again is 2 button clicks for a simple cut. With this setup, you can press Q to delete everything left from the toggle, W to make a simple cut, and E to remove everything right from the toggle. This allows you to fly through raw footage and only select the clips you will need in the end. Apart from that, I use many of the default shortcuts, but there is one more thing I changed, which is the next tip: the video playback speed. When you are working with raw footage of like 5 times the same sentence, long breaks between between relevant content, you're gonna have to watch through 90% of content that isn't gonna be in the final edit. For me, this is the editing stage that gets me distracted a lot. To make sure that my attention span is on point and that I fully focus on editing, I programmed a key to double the speed of the footage. And of course, I programmed another key to slow it down. This will save you a lot of time because you're browsing through the footage more quickly. If you want to use the same keyboard shortcuts as I do in Premiere Pro, I made a free preset you can download in my store. The link is in the description. Before we dive into the software side of things, let's talk about something that is often ignored, which is proper file management. I actually couldn't find any insightful videos on this topic, so if you guys have any better solutions, please leave them in the comments. I personally set up a folder structure for each party I'm working with, so for my own brand, for projects in my own brand, for clients. The next layer in the folder is the months, and in the last layer there is a folder for the raw footage, for the Premiere project, for the renderings, and sometimes for b-rolls or graphics. Naming your files by date, content, and project is also very important for structuring and filtering. It is also very important that you put the footage into the right folder before you start editing the project, because if you leave your assets in the downloads folder or in some other folder it's not supposed to be in, and at a later point you move it somewhere else, you will receive the famous error message for files missing. I use an SSD drive and cloud storage as an archive. One thing I like doing to save storage, and I haven't seen anyone else doing this, is creating clean footage. So what you do is you export only the final clips from your timeline and you hide all of the other assets and sounds. After importing your footage as a new file, it looks like this, and you cannot really see the clips or where the cuts were set before. But if you right click on it and go to Scene Edit Detection, you can automatically apply the cuts that were set before. You can see that the footage is now identical. If you do this, you can delete all of the unused footage that didn't make it into the final cut, because all the content you need is in that newly rendered footage. Now, I only do this on projects where I am 100% sure that all of the unused footage will not be needed in the future anymore. If you need to access that project again at some time in the future, it's very likely that you only do that because you need a clip that is in the final edit and not one that is in the unused ones. So you save all of that footage that is useless and taking up a lot of space. It is not unusual that if you do this, your project folder will be 90% smaller. I don't want to stack dozens of hard drives for footage that is never going to be used again. Especially if you're working on short form content with huge quantity output, you need to be efficient with storage. The next tip is Workspace Arrangement. This is one of the tips with the highest impact you will immediately feel if you set it up properly. I have a preset workspace for vertical videos with a large preview window and easy access to captions, animations, and emojis. And I have a preset workspace for YouTube where the video is of course horizontal. I made a separate video on Workspace Arrangement in Premiere Pro, and you can check it out if you want to. The obvious improvement for Workspace Arrangement, which I personally haven't done yet, is having multiple screens. I'm personally working from a lot of different places because of my startup, so I need to be able to work and edit from my laptop. But if you do have access to more screens, definitely use them. Every inch of screen real estate will make it easier to access all the features you need in your workflow. In the workspace setup, there's the effects window, which leads us to our next tip, using presets. Presets are predefined visual and audio effects that can be applied via drag and drop. There are presets for color grading, audio editing, transitions, and animations. If you're editing short form content, presets will be your best friends. I mostly use them to animate captions to create effects like this, and I have my own emoji animations, which lets me create animations like this one, or this one, or this one. I've made a separate video just on emoji animation, so if you're interested, you can check it out here. And if you want to buy my animation pack, you can get it on my website as well. You can create your own presets by applying effects on your assets, playing around with the parameters and keyframes, and saving your specific settings as a preset that can be found in the effects library. The next tip is for everyone that is using captions in their videos. The fact that you can generate them automatically in many different tools should be known by now. I also made a video on this if you want a deeper understanding of how it works. But one hack I use is putting all of the content I'm working on into one sequence, one after the other. So for example, if a client sends you 10 TikToks, you import them next to each other in the same sequence. The main advantage of doing this is that the captions only need to be generated once. So I can transcribe, remove all the dots and commas, apply the right styling for 10 plus videos at a time. Then I export every video individually using the in and out selection. The approach of importing all of your videos at once is also an advantage for the next tip, audio editing. Since most of your customers will record their content with the same setup, in the same location, with the same mic, you can apply audio presets, and since all of them are next to each other, you only need to apply it once and don't need to do it manually for each video. The final bonus tip, and the one that's gonna annoy a lot of you guys, guys, is focus. You need to set up an environment and a framework that allows you to work on the highest quality of focus and for the longest period of time. I personally work in 90 minutes deep work cycles. I also set up a work mode on my phone that only allows specific calls to go through and disables all notifications. And if you enjoy listening to music while being productive, make sure you have a playlist just for deep work. Alright, so that's all from me. If you guys have any ideas, suggestions, make sure you put them in the comments and let's continue this discussion.